Hello and welcome to MAGA, the podcast. Our mission is to show how Don the Con bamboozled our nation. Our goal is to help make sure the cult of MAGA goes down in flames by 2028, to stop it before MAGA becomes unstoppable and democracy further decays into a dictatorship. If you want the cult of MAGA to end, we have to know how it began and why it spread. Now, this is not your racist uncle's MAGA. Our MAGA stands for I'm an angry asshole, the cult of Donald Trump. And I'm your host, the disgusted American. In our last episode, we explored how Trump loves to start and spread conspiracy theories. Started way back in the 80s with the Central Park Five. Trump then used the birther lie that Obama wasn't born in the United States to gain political clout. And then more recently, he's fed conspiracy theories about QAnon and election stealing. But his pattern of using conspiracies to lay the blame for all of his horrible behavior isn't working with the Epstein files. His claims that he wasn't a fan, and that Epstein was a lone pervert on a hill, isn't really working. Trump and Epstein were buds for a long time. And Trump, unfortunately for him, has a long history of publicly acting like a creepy perv. And his usual ace in the hole to blame the Democrats just doesn't make any damn sense this time. If the Democrats had the goods on Trump, why wouldn't they release it? So he's floundering because the people that he told never to trust anybody don't trust him. And he's desperately trying to change the subject. And he'll try again, but so far his frame is failing. In a comment without frame, the ability to get an issue perceived on your terms, it's like a magician who can't hide their trick. A trick doesn't work if people can see what you're doing. That's not magic. It's tragic. And this week, we're going to explore the question of how Don the Con plans to get his Epstein files ruse back on track. If he can't fix the frame, maybe he can go with another con man tactic. Maybe he just needs a good distraction. So how do con men use distractions to sell their cons? Well, they use the distraction to divert your attention from their scam, to make it easier to manipulate and defraud you. Now, they have two big buckets of tools. The first big bucket are physical distractions. So they might create a scene. Maybe they stage an argument, drop something, or cause a minor accident that attracts attention and draws you away from what's really going on. Sometimes it's physical contact, a light touch, a pat on the back, or an accidental bump that can be used to shift your attention and create an opportunity for the con artist to ambush you. Now, the second big bucket are psychological distractions. Maybe they'll engage you in an overly demonstrative way. They'll approach you with excessive friendliness, assistance, or request your help. These can all be tactics to lower your guard and make you less observant of their actions. Sometimes they'll dangle juicy promises in front of you, like easy money or raising your social standing. Or they'll prey on your fears to cloud your judgment and get you to act impulsively. Now, what other levers do scammers have to get you all emotional and create a sense of urgency? Well, sometimes they'll feign stress or illness or desperation to elicit sympathy and manipulate your emotions, making you less likely to question their motives. Or maybe they'll appeal to your sense of trust. Con artists might try to establish a false sense of trust by sharing personal information or engaging in lengthy conversations to lull you into a false sense of security. Regardless, the goal of distraction is to tap into how human beings pay attention. Attention is like a spotlight, which means that when it's pointing in one direction, it pretty much misses everything else. And people don't realize how little information is coming in from the outside world that we can actually process when we're distracted.
Our brain is not wired to pay attention to more than one complex task at a time. What we're actually doing when we think we're multitasking is quickly shifting our focus from one activity to another. So while our mind is engaged in applying makeup, arguing with backseat drivers, fumbling for a water bottle, or a conversation, it's blind to the road. In fact, Drivers are 4 times more likely to crash while talking on the phone, and 23 times more likely while texting. Driving can feel uneventful, but it really takes our full attention to keep the car on the road. We're surrounded by distractions that can hijack our focus. Whether we let them is up to us.
A classic example of a distraction scam would be 3-card monte, sometimes called Find the Lady or Follow the Queen. It's that card game where you have to find one card out of 3 that are face down after the grifter shuffles them around for a bit. Now, some scammers call 3-card monte polite mugging, and there's 2 versions of the scam. There's an external version of the scam that depends on an external distraction. At the heart of this hustle is the orchestration of people in a crowd of onlookers. They present themselves as civilians, but they're actually in on the con. And marks get distracted by the situation on the street around them, the banter, the laughter, the excitement. They don't realize the whole thing is a setup. And no matter what the mark thinks they know, there's no way for them to win. The grifter is always one step ahead. So how is Trump using external distractions to distract from the Epstein files? Here are a couple of his recent gambits. First, a few weeks ago, the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, released a slew of documents that she said implicate members of the Obama administration for treasonous behavior during the 2016 election cycle.
The implications of this are far-reaching and have to do with the integrity of our democratic republic. It has to do with an outgoing president taking action to manufacture intelligence, to undermine and usurp the will of the American people in that election, and launch what would be a years-long coup against the incoming President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Director Gabbard, you referenced the past intelligence reports and assessments on this, including that 2017 one that was signed off, as Ed noted, by every Republican on the Senate Intelligence Community, including the acting chair of the time, now Secretary of State Marco Rubio, who said in a statement that they did not find any evidence of Russian collusion, but they did find, however, is very troubling, and they found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling.
But that didn't stop Trump from accusing President Obama of treason, a crime punishable by death in the United States.
He's guilty. This was treason. This was every word you can think of. They tried to steal the election.
During Trump's first term, a special counsel investigated potential government wrongdoing, finding no evidence intelligence had been falsified in a systematic way, influenced by political concerns or directed by the former president.
It's to bait and switch the ideas of meddling and collusion. The bigger question is, why is Trump hashing all of this up now? 2025, the election cycle of 2016, 10 years ago. Well,
President Trump brought up former President Obama moments after being asked a question related to the controversy surrounding the investigation into convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein.
It's all about Epstein. Don the Con needs to create some crowd noise, some confusion, in the hopes that people will turn their spotlight on Obama and forget about Epstein. So how do you respond when a con man and his stooges are looking to distract? Well, here's a great example with Trump bootlicker Lindsey Graham.
Hold on, Senator. As you know, former President Obama has weighed in through a spokesperson. He says that's just patently false. I actually spoke to Susan Miller, who's a former senior CIA officer who helped oversee the 2017 intelligence assessment on Russian interference. She says it's completely false that Obama or anyone else asked them to change or sway their investigation. She says they all, she says, and she's a Republican, says they all would have quit if that had happened. Senator, are you trying to rewrite history to distract from the Epstein matter, Senator?
The interviewer refused Lindsey's frame. And the frame can't dominate if you refuse it. It's an important thing to remember. A lot of times when we're talking about issues, the frame is key. Whoever sets the frame wins the game. Another thing, this distraction campaign around Obama is pointless. Trump recently got the Supreme Court to give the president immunity during office. And that also extends to former presidents. That makes this distraction attempt even more pathetic. It's pretty obvious this Obama gambit isn't going anywhere. Nobody's talked about it since Tulsi's goofy press conference. So we move on to external gambit number 2.
A former Doge employee who says he was assaulted over the weekend by a group of teenagers. D.C. police tell us tonight 2 15-year-olds have been arrested and charged in that case.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse. This is Liberation Day in D.C., and we're going to take our capital back. We're taking it back. Under the authorities vested in me as the President of the United States, I'm officially invoking Section 740 of the District of Columbia Home Rule Act. You know what that is? And placing the D.C. Metropolitan Police Department under direct federal control. In addition, I'm deploying the National Guard to help reestablish law, order, and public safety in Washington, D.C. You know, you're reporters, and I understand a lot of you tend to be on the liberal side, but you don't want to get mugged and raped and shot and killed. You want to have safety in the streets. You want to be able to leave your apartment or your house where you live and feel safe. Our capital city has been overtaken by violent gangs and bloodthirsty criminals, roving mobs of wild youth, drugged out maniacs and homeless people. And we're not going to let it happen anymore. We're not going to take it.
That's right. Some douche gets carjacked, and suddenly D.C. is in flames, and Super Trump is going to save the day. He's going to take over D.C. to stop this crime wave. But wait, the real question is there really a crime spike in D.C.?
But the move comes as crime in the district is actually going down. Let's bring in Anna Schechter. She is a senior coordinating producer for CBS News' Crime and Public Safety Unit. Let's talk a little bit about the police data, though, because it doesn't necessarily go in line with what President Trump is saying. What have you found?
We did have a spike in violent crime in Washington, D.C., as we saw throughout the country in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, particularly in D.C. in 2023. So it was so high that last year when it started to fall, it was falling pretty dramatically, and it continued to fall in the first half of this year. So really positive news. We're almost getting down to pre-pandemic levels for the murder rate, other violent crimes. We're getting there. This is a positive trend. So when Trump was describing a really violent dystopia that D.C. is, it didn't really jive with sort of a holistic look at the data.
And just taking this out a little bit wider, how does crime in D.C. compare with the rest of the country as a whole?
D.C. is pretty much in line with the national trend, but I want to even widen the aperture out to, say, the early 1990s. That's when we saw huge numbers in terms of homicide, violent crime. So that was way higher than we saw even in 2023. So just a little bit of historical perspective there. It's not nearly as bad as it was in the 1990s.
DC, crime's at a 30-year low. So Trump now has a bunch of people marching around in a circle around DC. There's 800 troops from the local National Guard, another 750 or so troops from West Virginia, Ohio, and South Carolina. 3,000 DC police officers are now under presidential control, and hundreds of federal agents from the FBI, ICE, the DEA, ATF, Capitol Police, the Secret Service, and the U.S. Marshals are stomping around DC. Now, how long are they going to do this? Well, it's supposed to be a max of 30 days, but Trump's going to lobby Congress to extend it. And again, it's a pure distraction campaign. Create a phony emergency, and then make lots of noise to draw attention away from something else. I wonder what that could be. But wait, the DC gambit gets even worse. Because not only is Trump going to go after phantom criminal spikes, he's going after the homeless under the guise of making DC more beautiful.
The process begins right now. It actually started over the weekend. We confronted a lot of very bad people. But it's going to be something that will be pretty amazing to you as you watch it. And I think most of you say it's a beautiful thing to do it right. We're going to be removing homeless encampments from all over our parks, our beautiful, beautiful parks, which now a lot of people can't walk on. They're very dirty, got a lot of problems. But we've already started that. We're moving the encampments away, trying to take care of people, getting rid of the people from underpasses and public spaces from all over the city. There are many places that they can go, and we're going to help them as much as you can help. But they'll not be allowed to turn our capital into a wasteland for the world to see.
Which, when you think about it, is a really horrible thing to say and believe. We have these poor, suffering people that are already struggling. They're homeless. And he describes them and refers to them as being ugly, and they need to be scrubbed away. So Trump's making these half-assed promises of help. But here's the brutal reality.
There are folks who will say, well, it's a shelter. I mean, it's better than being out on the street. There are services that are going to be provided to you. They said that you would get the option of mental health treatment and everything else. Why is it, for people who may not understand, that may not necessarily be a viable option or an attractive option to someone who's unhoused?
The real underlying issue is nowhere in this country is there enough shelter in the first place. So when they raid your encampment, there's absolutely no guarantee that you'll go to a shelter. Typically what happens is people move from one unsheltered location to another. So you haven't solved anything. So by criminalizing people, fining, jailing, giving people tickets, you actually exacerbate homelessness. You make it worse. Yeah. Now people have a criminal record to deal with, and their opportunity to get in housing is that much more of a burden. The opportunity to get a job is that much more of a burden.
I think often people think this is something that's so far from me, but many Americans are one crisis away from themselves experiencing housing insecurity. And many Americans, like myself, have family members who have suffered with mental health challenges, suffered with housing instability, and come face to face with police. And I can tell you that is not an interaction that leads to good care, to good outcomes. Why are we seeing this push from our federal government right now?
And just to underscore that, 85% of the population of people experiencing homelessness in D.C. are people of color. Yeah. People of color are 3 to 4 times more likely to become homeless. And the issue that we have to deal with that hasn't ever lifted since the beginning of this country is structural racism. So that's another big component of this. And I would also say 2 things really important. One is that criminalization does not solve homelessness. Right. You can't threaten somebody into having enough money to pay their rent.
If you want to know the true priorities of something, follow the money. And here's the reality of how Trump's big, beautiful bill, the budget where all the money goes, is going to affect homeless services.
We've never funded homeless services to the level of need. And in fact, this president's budget would zero out most of the most effective evidence-based practices that deal with homelessness. He wanted to put time limits on subsidized housing. Only a quarter of the people who should get subsidized housing and are eligible for it actually receive it. So we have a major housing problem in this country. We have 7 million less units than we have a need for those units in this country.
The stark reality is that Trump doesn't give a damn about DC crime or homelessness. It's right there in his budget. He bankrupted the budget for homeless services the same way he bankrupted his shitty casinos in Atlantic City. None of what he's proposing is actually going to mitigate homelessness in the long term, because the money it would actually take to do this has been looted by Trump to pay for his priorities. Tax breaks for the rich, a massive expansion to ICE and the Defense Department, and ripping away health care from poor people, like the homeless. He's just running a 3-card Monty scam. So there it is, folks. MAGA's big dilemma. Are they going to hold their nose and pretend to pick the wrong card, even when they know it's the wrong card? If his external distractions are not working, right? Obama's a traitor, and he's going to save D.C. by flooding it with cops for 30 days and scrubbing away the homeless. None of that works. We talked about this external distraction version of the 3-card Monty scam. The yelling, the talking, the making a loud noise. What if the mark keeps their eyes on you? What if they don't look away when someone in the crowd yells or screams? Now, if external distractions don't work, the con man has to go with another tactic. There's the internal distraction version of 3-card Monty.
So you want to be a grifter, huh? A street hustler, a con man. You want to make a quick buck at someone else's expense. At first glance, this seems like an easy game to play. It's simple. You have 2 kings and an ace. So you invite someone to place a bet. $5 says that you can't find the ace. So you have 2 kings and an ace. There's the ace, there's the ace, and there's the ace again. So where is it now? You see, of course, the ace is right here. Well, shit, you're quicker than I thought. And you won $5, so you're feeling pretty good about yourself, aren't you? All right, wise guy, double or nothing. $10 says that you can't do it again. Now you got him hooked. And this is where the grift comes in. You got king, king, ace. Follow the ace. There's the ace again, there's the ace again. So you say, easy enough, the ace is right here. But lo and behold, the ace is actually right here. All right, I'll make it easier. We'll put the ace over here. King, king. So where is the ace? Now, if you said the ace was here, well, then you're wrong again, you imbecile, because it's here. To do this trick, you have to learn 2 things. How to grip the cards and how to do a false toss. So when you grip the cards, grab the first card between your middle finger and thumb and the second card between your ring finger and thumb. So instead of throwing the bottom card, you throw the top card like this. Then do a few more tosses just to make it look challenging. And so whenever they think that the ace is over here, you know that it's actually right here. Grip the first card with thumb and middle finger, the bottom card with thumb and ring finger, false toss the top card, mix them up, and then reveal. This isn't magic. Magic isn't real.
I'll drop a link in the episode notes if you want to see the false toss in action. What is going to be Trump's internal distraction? How is he going to perform his false toss? Here's how he's going to do it.
For a full month, the Trump administration has tried to extinguish the fiery controversy over the case of Jeffrey Epstein and whether some of Epstein's crimes and cohorts are being covered up by the government. In a controversial move Friday, the administration added more fuel to the fire. Convicted sex predator Ghislaine Maxwell was transferred from a federal prison in Florida to the Bryan Federal Correctional Facility in Texas, outside of Houston. It's a smaller, less populated facility and considered a prison camp.
She's keeping her spirits up.
The move happened exactly 1 week after Maxwell and her defense attorney, David Marcus, sat for an interview with Deputy U.S. Attorney General Todd Blanche to talk about her case and the Jeffrey Epstein case. In a statement issued Friday, relatives of Virginia Giuffre, Epstein's most vocal and visible abuse victim, blasted the Trump administration for transferring Maxwell, calling it a horror and outrage and preferential treatment. Earlier this week, Giuffre's family said they feared the president would pardon Maxwell.
The word that comes to mind is it would be an abomination.
The president has not ruled out clemency for Maxwell. Adam Rosenberg is a child safety advocate in Baltimore.
This talk of pardons in politics on the issue of a sex trafficker, you think that's traumatizing to victims?
I think what makes it traumatizing to victims when we hear about pardons and all this work of trafficking is that, again, the rich and powerful are getting a pass.
We asked Maxwell's defense attorney if a pardon is being discussed or negotiated, and he has not responded. Maxwell has 12 more years to serve in prison for her sex trafficking conviction.
An internal distraction depends on misdirection. In the case of 3-card Monte, it's a false toss. The grifter pretends they're tossing one card while actually tossing the other. And it happens so fast that your eyes miss it. It's meant to move your eyes to the wrong place so you don't see where the card truly is. And Trump's been doing this for years. The problem is he's gotten lazy. He's won so many games of 3-card Monte, he's gotten sloppy. And now people are seeing his tricks and they're picking the right card. People can see that he's still hiding the queen. And now they're getting pissed because he's promised to pay up and he's trying to stiff them. People want their fucking $10. In the real world version, people want him to reveal the Epstein list and arrest the guilty pedophiles that he's been promising for years, and he won't. Instead, he keeps telling MAGA, whenever they point at the queen, they figure out the right card, aka ask about the Epstein files, he tells them this.
Fuck off. 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 Fuck off.
This is a bit of a problem for MAGA world. A whole lot of people have built a hero story on Trump. on him revealing the Epstein list, of him being God's chosen one, and he's going off the script. So what's MAGA going to do now that they finally figured out that Trump won't slay the monster because he is the monster? He's going to use Ghislaine Maxwell as his get-out-of-jail-free card. This is how it's going to go. Ghislaine's going to tearfully repent and provide a list of perpetrators. And the list is going to come right from the mouth of the devil's assistant. And there'll be a whole performance about how she finally revealed the list because she needed to bring justice to all the victims. The guilt was killing her. And not because Trump's pardoning her from her own 20-year prison sentence for being a massive pedophile herself. And this pure false toss from Trump is going to be that he's going to magically produce a list that's explicitly manufactured to make sure he's not on it. Is this false toss going to work? Well, former Fox News host Gretchen Carlson doesn't think so.
Times President Trump has been asked the question, would you pardon Ghislaine Maxwell? Because she obviously wants a pardon. And he never categorically says no. I know. Right. That it's still hanging out there. So what do you, I can do it. Right. Mm-hmm. I haven't thought about it, but I can do it. What do you make of the fact that President Trump still refuses to categorically rule out a pardon for a convicted sex trafficker, sex assaulter?
I think that is the biggest slap in the face to the survivors of everything else that I listed. Because that is, to your point earlier, normalizing the fact that it doesn't matter what she did. The idea that would even be on the table for consideration, that is going to cross all party lines. There will be an insurrection if that happens. It won't just be Democrats. It'll be MAGA. It'll be independents. It will be everybody, because we are at a place in the society right now where we know that child sex trafficking is a crime, and that you should not be granted clemency or any release for doing that to young women.
He did release her from, I should say Ghislaine Maxwell was released from this maximum security prison to a club fed.
And that is very worrisome to me, because while Congress is on recess and they can't call these hearings and have these people come testify, and by the way, they should call the survivors to come and testify for those as well. But I'm worried that another shoe may drop here, where maybe from a political point of view, they will grant her a pardon before any of the rest of that can happen. But I think the American public would rise up against that, because we are at a different place in 2025.
Guess who else doesn't think so? Elon. He recently added a bullseye to a tweet that laid this all out. The tweet said, here's how it's going to go down. Ghislaine names a bunch of Democrats, maybe tosses in a few billionaires. She says Trump did nothing wrong. MAGA praises her for taking down the pedophiles, and Trump pardons her for telling the truth. Right? Elon bullseyed it. He doesn't think this bullshit story is going to work either. So here we are. Trump needs to find a distraction so he can three-card Monty the Jeffrey Epstein scam. He tried a couple of external ones, that Obama was a traitor and DC's on fire and teaming with gross homeless people. And he has an internal distraction campaign going over in his back pocket, where Ghislaine Maxwell is going to produce a compromise list and get pardoned. So we're at a place now where essentially it comes down to your move, MAGA. Are you going to let him pull the old Logan Roy and tell you to fuck off? Or are you going to toss old Trumpty Dumpty off his Great Wall? That's all we've got for this week. If you want to help out the channel, please subscribe or follow us on your preferred podcasting platform. And tell your fellow disgusted Americans where they can find us to give us a listen. Leave us a rating on your favorite platform so more folks can find the show. Reminder that new episodes drop typically on Wednesday, sometimes on Thursday. Thank you again for tuning in. Have a great night, folks.